So we have a quorum. How is everybody today? It's September 7th. It's 7:01. We have a quorum. I'm not sure if Commissioner Faulkner is coming, but Commissioner Felsenthal will not be joining us today. So we can start the meeting. Commissioners, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we'll start in the left side of the neighborhood with Commissioner Balaki at 1C01, please.
Thank you. I represent 1C01, which is the southwest corner of ANC 1C, basically start at the intersection of Connecticut and Florida and go north and west into the residential neighborhoods over to 18th and up to Columbia. Thanks.
Peter Wood, 1C03, 19th to Wyoming.
Megan Faulkner, 1C04, the northwest corner of the neighborhood around Walter Pierce Park.
Commissioner Boots, 1C06 on the eastern edge, 16th and up from Colorama to Columbia. A little bit of linear.
Commissioner Jake Valaschini, the Heart of Adams Morgan 1C07 from 18th to 17th Florida, right now up to linear, but changing to Columbia.
Thank you. My name is Fiona Clem. I'm Commissioner for 1C08 in the southeast corner of Adams Morgan. Okay, great. On to officers' reports. The chair has, I was going to say the chair has nothing to report, but if people in the community see Gordon Chapin and Sean Sullivan participating in this meeting, it's because Gordon Chapin has resigned from his duties, unfortunately, with ANC 1C. Thank you so much, Gordon, for years of service, and Sean Sullivan is hopefully, with some community input at the end of the month, going to be taking over for him. So that's my chair report. On to the secretary's report. Commissioner Valaschini, please.
Sorry, just took a second to unmute. I have nothing to report other than, as secretary, other than that we are back to a normal meeting schedule for the month of September. So the meeting tonight at 7 p.m. and then normal schedule for committees going forth for the rest of the month. ABC and Public Safety Committee next Wednesday. The Wednesday after that, we'll have the PZT Committee and then the Public Services and the Environment Committee meeting in the final Wednesday of the month. All of those are at 7:30 p.m. All of them are on Zoom and all of them are open to the public, and we love for people to attend. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Valaschini. Just one clarification, they're at 7.
Sorry, what did I say?
I think you said 7:30. It's okay.
Oh, sorry, 7 p.m.
That's all right. Treasurer Faulkner. Treasurer Faulkner.
Hi. Yes. So nothing big to report since we had August off, and so we didn't make any major expenses. Our current balance is $22,584. I am hoping that we will get future allotments very soon, but we may not get any until the next fiscal year, which fortunately begins in a little under a month.
To clarify, was that 2,200 or 22,000?
Oh, 2,500. Sorry, 2,584.
Thank you. All right, on to commissioner announcements. We'll start in the lower left-hand corner of the neighborhood. And if you are the chair of a committee, feel free to share information on your agenda and your meeting. Commissioner Balaki?
Thank you so much, Chair Clem. Just wanted to quickly mention, it's my understanding that the Universal building down at the corner of Connecticut and Florida has recently been purchased by a development firm that's in the business of converting obsolete office buildings into residential housing. So we're looking at about 700,000 square feet of office space that they say could wind up being about 600 apartment units. Just wanted to flag that for folks. It's going to be an impact on the neighborhood. increased housing density in urban areas is a good thing, and so is rehabbing old buildings to make new apartment space. So hopefully this will work well, and we'll be following it closely. Thanks.
So start with alcoholic beverage control or safety. We have the next meeting, which is next Wednesday, September 14th, 7 p.m. We have, I think the renewal schedule is mostly winding down. We have one of those to go through at least, and a new license to review. So I have an air conditioner next to me. Is it hard to hear me?
It is. I mean, it is. Yes.
Okay. I'll just be loud. Is this any better? So yeah, next Wednesday, September 14th, 7 p.m. Next alcoholic beverage control and public safety meeting. The renewals are winding down. We have another new license to review as well, so hopefully it should be pretty smooth. As far as 1203, someone went by kind of quick and slow. a lot happened, but at least looking forward, a couple events. One of them is actually outside of Adams Morgan, but kind of a Ward 1 thing that from the Ward 1 Education and Youth Committee have been a part of. It's based in ANC 1A. This Saturday from 12 to 4 at the Mount Pleasant Library, there's a mental health wellness fair festival. I forget the specific term, but there's a lot of organizations that will be present there, targeting a lot of different age groups and demographics to see how the library system can kind of be a hub for a lot of mental health services. And it's always appropriate, but especially for tonight's agenda, I think that's particularly important. On top of that, there's some biking events going on. 50 States Ride is on the
17th.
And then some other stuff that's not, it's related to ANC, like this, but the real point is keep your eyes on the calendar. It's a busy month. Thanks.
Apologies, also took me a moment to unmute. So for the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee, we'll be meeting 2 weeks from today on the 21st. On our agenda right now is discussion about the pedestrian zone and consideration of a resolution reiterating our support now that there have been several pedestrian zones, and offering providing feedback to the Office of Planning and the other agencies that have been a part of it. And also, we will also be discussing and considering a possible tree planting plan for the BB&T Truist Plaza at the corner of Adams Mill and Columbia. I think that is not on the Google Doc yet, but it will go on there, and that we will be discussing that. As people may know, those trees that were planted there last fall unfortunately died. It sounds like they may not have been compatible for that spot, and that's why we're considering different tree types. And that is all that is on the agenda for now. And I don't think I have any other notes, except I guess I will mention I've gotten a couple of communications about 2920 Ontario Road, which is a long vacant building that is pretty well known. And I think there has been many problems with it, but there's recently been some additional people dumping things there. So I know people have put in 311 requests. I've put in a request with DCR to go and once again visit that property, but feel free to reach out to me. You know, that there definitely is getting attention, but it is not moving as quickly as we would like. And I think that's all I have. Thanks, everyone.
We're all having trouble with the mute today. Don't have too much. We do have the Public Service and Environment Committee on the 28th. We will, right now on our agenda, a lot to do with just using, looking at our Zoom contracts, as well as kind of our meeting managers and reviewing their contracts, and welcome anyone from the community who have any input or want to have any questions, to feel free to join us. We'd love to have your input on that. And that is all I have right now.
Thank
you. So a couple of quick updates. School is back in session, as you have probably noticed. Lots of kids walking around the neighborhood. Would remind everyone to please be respectful of school speed zones, obey the speed limit, slow down to 15 miles an hour when you're within 100 yards of a school zone. It's really important for the safety of our kids and our families that folks are obeying the speed limits in these areas. Also, we now have a new vaccine that folks can get. They are available at the COVID vaccine centers that are stationed in the various wards in Ward 1. Ours is on U Street at 1000 U Street down by Vermont. They are now available for anyone walk in to be able to get. So feel free to go down there and get those. Otherwise, they will be available soon at local pharmacies. And I have heard from constituents about the Marie Reed pool, and I have reached out to DPR about that. Apparently, the heater is broken, so that's an issue. And also, they haven't been posting their hours very well online. So I am trying to work with them to make sure that they do a better job of keeping that updated online. Other than that, very local issues, and I won't go into it.
Thank you, commissioners. So next up on our agenda is an update from Ward 1 Council Member Brianne Nadeau. Always good to have you here, Council Member. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. I'm across like 4 devices right now trying to get everything I need to touch base with you. Here's the first announcement off the top is we are now dccouncil.gov, which means every device has to be logged in and every program and every device has to be logged in. So if you're a digital person like me, you're at a disadvantage at the end of the day when everything is being migrated. But I think I got all my notes together so I don't miss anything for you all. For those who haven't met me before, I'm the Ward 1 Council Member, Brianne Nadeau. You are in ANC 1C, which is part of Ward 1. And I'm really happy to be here with you tonight. So council's been on legislative recess, so I have fewer updates than I normally would, but I think I still have some good stuff because it's been a while since we've been together. And of course, recess time for ward council members is ward time. So it's great. So first, let me just say, I heard you talking a bit about the pedestrian zone on 18th Street, and I want to congratulate everybody who helped make it happen. I know the ANC has been really pivotal to this. I know the bid has really taken the lead and made it after a decade of trying to make this happen. And I'm glad for the part that my office has played. I was remarking on my way to the Zoom tonight how frustrating it is that the first 2 I've been out of town, and to that my staff replied, and that's why we need to do it more often. So that's the lesson. So I look forward to being there in October. My daughter Zoe was there this weekend, and she has been carrying around her Admo water bottle ever since. And I think we're gonna have to get another one because her sister is very jealous. So let me just say it's having an impact in our household in ways that you probably never expected. But most importantly, I'm glad that we get to come together as a community, celebrate our business corridor, and just make it more walkable and usable, even for a brief period of time. So thanks to everybody. And for those of you who shared feedback, thanks for that too, because part of making this successful for the long term is getting it right and showing everybody in government that Adams Morgan knows how to have a safe and celebratory pedestrian zone. So that's what we got. We'll keep building on it. Thank you for that. Just a few other updates. So let's see. You may be following something that's been going on since April in our immigration community, which is governors from Texas and Arizona have decided that they're going to put people on buses to the District of Columbia and now New York and now Chicago, and give them bus tickets and say, good luck getting to your final destination. The people in DC will take good care of you. And of course, we always try to do our best, but we're not really set up for that because we're not a border city. And so since April, we've had thousands of people arrive that we very much want to do right by and care for. So there's been this combined response with volunteers. I'm sure some of you are in mutual aid and have volunteered, and we thank you for that. Nonprofit organizations. And now we are starting up with some government grants to help coordinate this. It's become clear that this isn't a temporary effort. That Texas in particular has decided this is what they're going to keep doing. It seems to work for them, and they don't really care that they're kind of lying to people and putting them on buses and saying all your needs will be met as if you just get on this bus. So we're working really hard now as a government to try to get people where they want to go. Most of the people arriving aren't trying to stay in DC. They just saw the bus ticket as an opportunity to get closer to where they want to be, which is smart. And so we can give them additional travel. We can help them with an overnight stay to get, organized. And then for those who decide they do want to make their home in the District of Columbia, which is a small percentage, but not insignificant, we are working with them. So you may have seen there are families that have decided to stay, and their children are being enrolled in schools, and they'll be added to the Alliance Healthcare program. So we're trying to take care of the people that we're welcoming to the District of Columbia. So there'll be more news on that this week. My role, it's like, what is my role, right? I'm a council member. Like, what do I have to do with the migrant response? Well, I've always been involved with immigrant issues. So I think people have looked to me on the council and where's Nadeau on all this. So I've been trying to coordinate efforts regionally, actually. So I'm a chairperson of a committee. It's something called the Metro Washington Council of Governments, which is our 25 closest jurisdictions in the DMV. And we work together on regional issues. When I was chair of the Human Services Committee there, we did a regional compact to end homelessness and align our resources. And as chair of the Region Forward Committee, I've got us with a resolution working together in our human services agencies and our emergency response agencies, and our partners in Montgomery County have stepped up with some resources. And we have another meeting Friday where I think we're going to try to get Prince George's on the hook for some. DC is a jurisdiction we should be very proud that is very generous with its resources. And it's a really great place to make a home. We've invested a lot in our human services and in our housing, and we know that there's still a great need. But when you compare us to other cities across the country, there isn't anyone that really does homeless services the way we do. So we are just trying to make sure we keep everything organized, that our migrants get the services they need, that our homeless residents are getting what they need, and that things aren't all mixing up and that resources are not being misallocated. So news will be coming soon from the mayor on next steps. So stay tuned, because this is an issue that isn't going to go away, and we want to be best positioned to greet these migrants and also serve them well and make sure that they're treated with dignity. So that's a big, big priority. And it's ongoing since April. The other thing that is really important to talk about right now is what's going on at the national level with the access to abortion. Of course, I don't have to tell you, Roe v. Wade was essentially overturned by the Dobbs decision, which means it's up to states now to provide access to this healthcare for women and others. And so I introduced legislation that has now had a hearing and is moving towards a markup. It is a sanctuary bill. It creates a sanctuary for people seeking abortions in the District of Columbia. What that means is if you come here for an abortion, our government is not going to cooperate with anyone looking for you to find out if you had one here. A very large percentage, I can't remember off the top of my head, a very large percentage of the abortions performed in the District of Columbia are from people out of state. So this is actually a very real thing. That was even before Dobbs. So that's the kind of place we are. We want to remain open. My bill goes further to protect the rights of people in same-sex marriages and also those seeking gender-affirming care, because those are being outlawed in certain states as well. So we're just kind of looking forward to like the next Supreme Court decision that might come down. The prospects of this bill are good. It's moving forward. The goal is to get it done this year before the new Congress. So maybe we have less of a chance that they'll meddle with it, because remember, anything your duly elected officials pass as law still has a congressional review period because we're not a state. So it's a good PSA right there. So that's something that we're all working on. We've also got legislation to shore up access to healthcare in general and make sure that abortion rights are protected in all of our healthcare programs, regardless of what happens at the federal level. You've probably heard me talk also about my bill, Walk Without Worry, which is about raised and continuous sidewalks. There's a markup for that coming in the fall. This is about pedestrian safety. It's about making it a lot harder to hurt people in a car when they are walking in a crosswalk by changing the way we build intersections, which is where we are. That's what we got to do. So that has a great prognosis as well. Markup coming very soon this fall, along with a package of other pedestrian safety enhancement bills that we're very excited about. It's nice when the council is working together towards a deadline, which in this case is the end of a council period where all the bills get tossed at the end of the year. And I also have a hearing November 16th on my sidewalk vending bill, which I know is of interest in Adams Morgan as well. This essentially creates a easier licensing process for street vendors. It allows the mayor to set up different vending zones. In this bill in particular had Columbia Heights in mind, and creating a vending zone where we could just control a little bit more the flow of traffic and commerce so that the sidewalks are accessible to all. So that's exciting. That bill has been introduced multiple times since 2019. So having a hearing in November is a big deal for this, and we hope it will move forward. And yeah, I think that's the legislative stuff. Now, there's obviously ongoing projects in 1C, and you've asked me about them before, so I want to make sure I came prepared this time with answers before you even asked. So both Unity Park and Hargrove Parks are still waiting for their improvements. Our Department of General Services, which is our real estate agency and construction agency, is continuing to work on what's called a design build solicitation, which is sort of like an all-in-one package, and in theory makes things go faster, and probably would have if that's how we'd started this process, but it's where we are now. And they're working on the solicitation. And what they're doing is they're pooling a couple pots of money we invested in each site to more effectively use those funds for both sites, which is smart. We like when government's more efficient and uses your tax dollars more wisely. And then we're just making sure, for those of you who are involved with this at Unity, that any improvements we make there are in addition to what the hotel is responsible through their agreement with the ANC and the community. So we're trying to, keep the eye on the ball with all that. I know these projects are very important to this commission. They are very important to me too, hence the funding. But we've seen this is slower than I like to see it. And so we're just continuing to push. So feel free to keep asking. It's not annoying. It's important to keep asking. So we also saw Columbia Road Bus Priority Project recommended. The recommended concept was presented earlier this summer. So I know ANC, you guys are really in the thick of this. So this may be more for the public, but it includes protected bike lanes and dedicated bus lanes for congested blocks and right sizing loading and pickup drop off space. And you see how excited I'm getting about this, which means I'm in the right line of work. Because streetscape is not for everybody, but it's really important to quality of life. I mean, I don't have to tell you all, there've been so many pedestrian safety issues in this area. Columbia Road is so wide and there's so much going on. So the more that we can designate spaces for certain uses, the safer we will all be, the more the users will know what to expect. And everyone will be, thanks, Kristen. Everyone will be, in a better place. Not so fun fact, Columbia Road in Adams Morgan is one of the few corridors where bike injuries outnumber pedestrian injuries. So ensuring bike and scooter safety is critical through part of this process too. And this is a bus priority project, so keep in mind, we'll be able to significantly speed up the buses that serve this area and other parts of DC. And that's been a complaint pretty regularly, even when service is not limited through pandemic use. So let's see, we don't have the details yet on proposals to improve crosswalks since those are dependent on the lane configurations, but that's going to be a significant emphasis of the final design. So expect that. And then let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll stop there and see what questions you have. I certainly have more material here, if for things that are coming up. But I'm just really grateful to be with you all, and I know you have a packed agenda.
Thanks, council member. I did want to let you know that in HD Cook, they got a raised crosswalk near at Euclid and 17th Street. They stopped at the raised crosswalk, and there is no zebra striping, but at least it's a raised crosswalk. So we're slowly getting there, at least near HD Cook. Now we need to get over to Marie Reed and get some safety stuff there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you raised that, because one of the bills, so my crosswalk bill is like, let's do the whole city. But one of the bills, Janice Lewis George's bill, Ward 4 council member, is specifically about schools and ensuring that there is a treatment for each school where children are crossing to keep it safer. So this bill is going to pass. It has all the same support that Walk Without Worry has. And so I think we're all going to work to fast track that. And, we have constituents in 1C also who have noted, sometimes the crossing guards aren't there, they call out, and the kids don't have the support they need. So we want to make sure that at every school we have the same access to pedestrian safety infrastructure, because that's an equity issue as well. So thanks for highlighting that. I'm gonna swing by on the bike to check it out.
Well, be careful, because you won't see it, because there's no striping. But
maybe I'll bring a can of paint. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, and then there's some questions in the chat, but I'll let the commissioners go first, and then I'll read through the chat questions if they haven't been addressed. Commissioner Wood?
All right, thanks. And thanks, Councilmember. I think it's a good thing that you seem to be in my brain or my notes because I've been thinking about those exact issues all summer. So I was do the same thing you did. I won't take up too much time, but like a big picture or a big city question and then a 1C question. The migrant buses, I've done some volunteering and it's been really rewarding with translating when people are literally coming from the bus and then shortly after, but it's not really a sustainable approach. Is that something that from the council perspective you've addressed, which is that like very specific but important transitional period of offering resources just so people aren't scared among many other? Is that something that has been discussed?
Yeah, great question. So right now about half the buses are being greeted by nonprofits, and the rest are being greeted by volunteers or not at all. And that's not sustainable for sure, right? Because people get here and they're tired, they're hungry, they may be ill, and they're confused. So I don't want to get ahead of the mayor, but there's going to be an announcement shortly about some DC resources and how we're going to close those gaps. And I think it's all very exciting and the right thing to do. So stay tuned for that. And I'll just say, I agree with you. It's a need. We're in a really difficult position because we're over here trying to run our own government and serve our own residents. And certainly we welcome refugees and immigrants through the regular process of folks who are coming in to DC or who settle here eventually. This is like nothing we've ever seen before. And it's totally not the protocol for immigration in this country, which I admit is broken, but it's we could have a whole other Zoom on that. So we are trying to come up with a way to address this on an ongoing basis that doesn't deplete the resources that we've already dedicated to our residents. And it's a really tough task. But I think we're up to it. So stay tuned. And I just want to say one more time, thanks to all the people who've been volunteering their time or opening their homes or offering supplies, because it's been, like always, a beautiful response from the people of the District of Columbia.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully those are, moving things in a good direction. Second issue, we passed a resolution discussed this. DDOT issues are often slow, but one that I've had a hard time with getting. DDOT has been great to me, particularly talking about 1CO3 issues, but they, for whatever reason, were slow this summer regarding one-way conversions and speed humps on Wyoming, Calorama. I've talked to some of your staff, but they weren't abreast of the issue to the extent that any of us would like. Anything from an idea of what's going on? I think that everyone might be just kind of catching up from summer, but do you have any information?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's email about it tomorrow. I'm perhaps the most abreast of it because it won't go away, right? Why have we all been dealing with this for so many years? But we need to, like, if DDOT's committed to it, they need to just get it done so we can move on and focus on other things. So we can follow up with you on that.
And that was a good reason that there was some delay, which was making sure it's compatible with whatever is going to continue to hopefully happen on 18th Street. But, you know, still good. I'll email you tomorrow. We can talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. And someone asked about, right, we were on an email this weekend about speed humps on Wyoming, I think, as a response to the pedestrian safety issues that may arise from the pedestrian zone. So we can talk about that. I will say this, and like just some food for thought. I know that ANC and DDOT already decided that they want to do a one-way on Wyoming. I do think people need to internalize that a one-way does really give people the opportunity to speed more, because they're not having to slow down for competing traffic, for oncoming traffic. So we're going to have to sort that out. Maybe the speed bumps is the answer. But it's, you know, we've seen it happen that way before. As you make it a one-way and then people can fly. So
Yeah. We discussed at a meeting about how speed bumps, I specifically said that particular thing that should be, as well as I think the contraflow bike lanes was fine.
Right. Those are good traffic calming too. Agreed. Thanks, Commissioner.
Commissioner Balaki.
There we go. Just want to take a moment and thank Commissioner Nadeau as a constituent and actually as a native Kansan for your sterling leadership on reproductive justice. I mean, Kansas is, my home state has planted the flag a little bit, and I think a lot of chickens are coming home to roost, politically speaking. So your good work is needed now more than ever. So thank you for that. I did have one sort of a bad pun, but a pedestrian issue, and echoing what Commissioner Falashini said about the opening of school, you know, creating issues on the street and so forth. We have Oyster Adams over here in 1C01, and we've gotten some improvements from DDOT this spring, some flex posts, and they've repainted the crosswalks, and we've got some new signage. But we do have a problem in that our crossing guard at 19th in California has retired and has not yet been replaced. So anything you could do to give DDOT a nudge to make that happen would be, I think, very valuable for that. The whole strip in front of Oyster Adams, having somebody, you know, having a human being out there sort of taking charge of the intersection makes a huge difference. I mean, we see it up at 19th in California where, you know, Annie Presley just does a great job and everybody loves her. So hope you can give the right people a nudge. And Dan on your staff is aware of this, and it has been helpful on the 19th Street stuff. So I want to pass that on as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Balaki, I was not trying to forget Oyster Adams when I mentioned H.D. Cook and Marie Reed. Commissioner Falaschini?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the council member for everything that she's always doing for the neighborhood. You and your staff are so in the weeds. You know everything that's happening. It's really amazing. It's like every email we send, it's a very quick response and very knowledgeable of what's happening on the ground. And I just couldn't be more appreciative. On that note, with the 18th Street pedestrian zone, as it's already been said, it's really brought up the issue of traffic calming measures around the neighborhood. And I just want to put in a plug that I've had speed tables approved for Champlain Street since April, and have put those in the queue, and they still haven't been built yet. And I've reached out several times to DDOT for updates, and they keep stalling on giving me a date for when those are going to come in. And I've made really clear to them that with the pedestrian zone on 18th, we really need these put in place on Champlain, so it doesn't just turn into a raceway when 18th is closed down. So whatever you could do to reach out and get those in the works and in the production and get a date on it, I'd certainly really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I will note too, with these DDOT issues and follow-ups, DDOT's new chief of staff is a Ward 1 resident who used to be the director of public space, Matthew Marcoux, who we have a really great working relationship with. And I think he's going to help us, hopefully. I don't want to put too much on his shoulders, but I think he's going to help us with some of these backlogs. It's been a while since we had like a bird dogger there for us as chief of staff, and I think it makes a big difference.
Thank you. Commissioner Faulkner?
Thanks. Yeah, folks have already asked about a lot of the things on my mind, but I just wanted to ask related to the bus priority project, but also the bus lanes on 16th Street, which are great and exciting. But I know I've continued to see on social media and see myself of people parking in the bus lanes during, and there being no enforcement. And occasionally I've heard of instances of it being MPD themselves parking there and things like that. I know it's a consistent problem in bus lanes around the district. So I would just love to know if there's any efforts at that. I know there have been talks about cameras on buses for enforcement and things like that, but it definitely, I know, is frustrating to have great bus lanes and then have buses not be able to use them.
Yeah, great question. The 16th Street bus lane in particular is something I've been working on since I was on the ANC, and I was so delighted to finally see that red paint go down. And then like 5 minutes later, the bridge project started and all the construction vehicles parked in the red paint. And I was a little bummed out about that, but that's wrapping up. We'll get back on track. I think enforcement's always an issue with bus lanes, as you said. Like, for one thing, I've been working really hard with MPD on 14th Street in particular, because it's been pretty egregious. And so I've seen it much less over there. If you're seeing MPD in places, I can certainly talk with the commander, and the assistant chief's been really helpful with that too, because she gets it. She's like, yeah, there's lots of kinds of safety, and one of them is road safety. So let's all work together on this, which is a very refreshing attitude, rather than like, this is where we need to park because this is what we're doing. Right. So I've also noticed Postal Service has been a big offender. And I haven't quite figured out how to tackle that, because they don't really report to anybody, but they kind of report to Congress. So I'm thinking that one through a little bit. But once you kind of get to that level, they're like, really? You're going to call a congresswoman about blocking a bike lane? Like, well, yeah, I will. But I'm not sure that's going to be on the top of anyone's priority list. So I'm just thinking that one through. I love the idea of automated enforcement, cameras on buses too. I'm with you on that. And until then, it's really just about making sure we can get more parking enforcement officers out there on the streets, and we'll keep asking for it. That's an agency that has a lot of vacancies right now. So if you know people who want to work in government, want to do a tough but rewarding job, let me know. We can get you all the info about where to apply, because the DPW workforce has been depleted a lot during COVID. And the government's done a lot of hiring fairs and things like that to fill those positions, but we definitely still have vacancies where we need them.
Thank you. If there are no more questions from commissioners, I was going to run through some of the questions that are in the chat. Council member, does the council support, or does the council member support the establishment of the DC government as an established shelter for migrants coming through DC?
I don't know exactly. I'll just say here's my position in general. Like, we're a sanctuary city. We welcome folks. We also know that this particular situation where migrants are being bused from other states, where they've actually been like there in line waiting to go through their process, started off as a political stunt. And people are the collateral damage there. People were lied to and told, get on a bus to the District of Columbia and they'll take care of you. And that's not, it's not fair to us, because we're here also digging out of a pandemic and trying to address homelessness in our city and all kinds of other things. But because we are a government and a people who care about immigrants and welcoming folks, we're working through that. And certainly the simplest thing is, if this is not a person's final destination, we are helping them get where they want to go. These are humanitarian parolees and asylees, which means they've immigrated here legally and they have a sponsor, and they're supposed to be making their way to their sponsor, right? So some folks have said in their application that they want to live in the District of Columbia, but that's not the majority of people. And so we're just trying to sort through that. There are some people who will change their mind and decide they want to stay in the District of Columbia because we are wonderful, right? And we're also working through that. And so when someone wants to establish residency, there's a whole process for that. It's not a complicated one. We help them enroll their kids in school. We help enroll them in healthcare. We can't necessarily offer them housing, right? They would be in the open market with everybody else, depending on their situation. But like that's sort of where we are. But yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I've worked to preserve our healthcare benefit for immigrants over the years. I've fought back against President Trump in upholding our sanctuary city, and fought back against ICE. And so I think this is a very different animal, but we are to serve people when they come here to the District of Columbia with whatever their needs are, whether it's passing through or staying.
Thank you. Another question was, is there a way to get the 42 back to running to MLK Library again?
Great
I don't know if you know the numbers, but the numbers are kind of ridiculous. Like there's like 5 people going to the Kennedy Center where there were like 5,000 people an hour going to MLK or Metro Center. I mean, it's insane. I don't know who proposed that, but is there a solution? I mean, what can be done?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if it was the timing of when they were doing the public input or what, but basically they surveyed ridership and public input, and they tried to talk to everybody they could find on the buses, and this is the route that they settled on as best serving the community. But I've heard complaints from a handful of people over the past several months on this, and I think, I personally think consumer input is the most important thing that Metro hears, and we can keep this in mind too in our conversations with Metro around bus routes. But I would say, like, the more people they hear from directly, the better. And they have a pretty accessible, they have a website with a comments form and whatnot. And I think they're going to notice if there's a bunch of people all of a sudden who are like, hey, the 42. So I would highly recommend that grassroots engagement around this, but it's definitely something on my radar. They're not in a position right now, I think, to change the route now because they're dealing with a lot of other stuff. But I think that's something we can certainly bring back in the future.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to read the question. Are there any updates regarding the education landscape here in the district?
I can talk about education, sure. So, let's see. We just got a report that there's been a lot of learning loss in the district during the pandemic. That is something that we are tackling through grant and intensive tutoring programs. We're not dissimilar from other parts of the country in this way. It's been difficult for our kids to learn during the pandemic, especially virtually. So we have a lot of work to do there. In general, we've been moving in the right direction. But there's also a lot of inequities in our system. They break down by race mostly, and definitely an achievement gap. And this is something that we've worked on by ensuring schools are equitably resourced and teachers are adequately paid. I work together both with our school leadership, our superintendent, our teachers, and parents, so that we can make sure we're getting a full picture of it. For those of you who are interested in getting involved in this, especially parents, there's a local group called PAVE, P-A-V-E. The big focus that we've had that parents have brought up through PAVE has been mental health supports for kids. This is something I've made major investments in our school-based mental health care program. A couple years in a row, I've amended the budget just to make sure we had dedicated funding for these programs. But kids are going through a lot. I've got 2 kids under 5 for a few more days, and then I will have 2 kids under 6, I guess. But they, you see it, like even with the little ones, you see that they're going through a lot and they've been through a lot. And so we as the adults really have to make sure that we're providing them all the supports they need. So working through that. The other program that I'm really proud of, that I helped create, is our current program called the Out of School Time Fund. That's $20 million that goes to after school summer programs. So it's extracurriculars, it's tutoring, it's mentoring, it's sports, it's all kinds of things that help kids learn skills and grow. And it helps parents too, because it fills up their time with positive activities, and it helps these kids on a really good path. So those programs are essential, and we keep pushing for more funding, but also the proper administration of them. So the program's been around for maybe 5 years now, and so we're starting to do evaluation of it, figure out where we need to be headed and where the gaps are. That parent group I mentioned, PAVE, has also been working really closely with me on that and surveying parents about what the needs are and what the gaps are. I'll give you an example. Not every program offers transportation from the school the kid is going to the program. So if you're a parent and your kid's school ends at 3 and they have an extracurricular that starts at 4, you're at work, you might have a problem getting them there. So these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about, which might seem obvious now that I've said it, but sometimes when you're structuring a grant, that's not top of mind. So we're working through those things.
Thank you. And it was mentioned, Commissioner Falaschini mentioned it also, but we're having problems with the hours of Marie Read. And can people reach out to you? Obviously, it's a DPR question, but I mean, these are ongoing questions. Is this, I guess, it's a citywide issue with DPR and running of swimming pools? Or
I don't know if it's still a citywide issue, but it's obviously still an issue at Marie Read, which is not a seasonal workforce as much as the summer pools are, right? I will say this also, if you would like to work as a lifeguard, we're always looking for reliable people. One of the challenges is, and this used to happen all the time at Marie Read, and then we've gotten a little bit better under control this summer, but it fluctuates, is, people would show up and the pool would be closed, and it would be because the lifeguard called out sick. And so they're having to shuffle, but you don't find out till the pool's supposed to open that the lifeguard hasn't shown up. And then they have to pull someone from another pool, which could take an hour. And then by then I've had to go to work. So I'm not swimming for the day, and there goes my workout, right? And I'm mad. So we want to avoid that situation. The reliability of the workforce has been a challenge. Feel free to send stuff to me. I've been working with our MOCR, our mayor's representative, Jared, on this pool in particular. And I think he's on tonight. I think Moises said he was going to be on.
He texted, he double booked this evening.
Oh,
so
well, there was that MPD meeting tonight too. So
yes.
In case, send them to me and we'll work it through. DPR has been really responsive. They're trying to get it right. It's a beautiful pool. All of us worked so hard to re-envision that space, and I want people to use it, and I want it to be reliably available. So we'll keep at it. We have one constituent who's been really persistent and letting us know every time something isn't right. That's super helpful, because then we know. I don't get to swim there as much as I'd like, so I don't always know every day when something is working.
Great, thank you. If there are questions from the neighborhood, please raise your hand. Gordon Chafin, do you have a question for the council member?
I do, thank you. I have an eligible medical condition for the bathroom access bill that passed. I noticed that DC Health hasn't promulgated regulations yet, and it seems like on limbs it's still in congressional review. And so I'm wondering, can you check on the process of getting an official card that my doctor can sign? And is it going to be next year, or how quickly can that happen?
Yeah. If it's still under congressional review, it's not going to be, the regs aren't even going to begin being promulgated for several months, and those can sometimes take half a year. And there's typically a public input process for the regs. I'm sorry that it takes this long, but feel free. I know you know how to find me. Send me a note, and we'll ask and see, because who knows? It could be that DC Health is yeah, we'll just do it, or here's what we suggest. We definitely want people to be able to use this benefit. It's really important. And I think that I have the legislation for the public restrooms initiative, or starting to cite public restrooms. Of course, I want one everywhere in Ward 1, but that's not how it works. Just because it's my bill doesn't mean I get to put them everywhere in our ward. But that's, we just in general need to have more accessible restrooms. Before the pandemic, there was a component of the public restrooms law that actually provided incentives to businesses that would make their restrooms available to the public. And of course, with the pandemic, it just didn't make a ton of sense to implement it. So we reallocated those funds towards another part of the project. But I think it's probably starting to be time to come back to that too, just in general, making restrooms more accessible all throughout the city. So for everybody, not just those with medical. So let's work on it together, and we'll figure out a timeline. I'm sure there are others who will want to know. I think you tweeted about. I think I saw you tweeted about it, and there was some interest from others. So we try to figure it out and get the word out.
Thank you. It looks like there aren't any questions from the community. So with that, thank you, council member, as always, for your time and your service to Ward 1. Really appreciate it.
Great being with you all tonight. Thank you for letting me take some time, and good luck with the rest.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the next part of our agenda, public announcements. If you have a public announcement, feel free to raise your hand and you will get promoted. And if we could keep those to a timely manner, 2 minutes per person, that would be great. Thank you. It looks like Kristen Barden from the BID is up.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Sorry, it took me a minute to come in as a panelist. So thank you all again for your support for the pedestrian zone. As I think most of you know, we've had 2 so far. We have 1 more on October 23rd. That's also a Sunday. And to highlight some of the activities that we're going to have then, since it's close to Halloween, we're going to do a pet costume contest. And we have ordered a red carpet that we're going to lay down in the middle of 18th Street so that people can parade around with their pets and their costumes. So stay tuned for more details about that. And also some of our clothing retailers are going to do a fashion show. So we'll have a fashion show for adults on the red carpet and then a fashion show for pets on the red carpet on October 23rd. So look for more details about that. We're also going to be bringing back a lot of the same entertainment, exercise classes, dancing, and face painting and balloon animals and all of that. We're going to bring back a lot of that again on October 23rd, thanks to a really generous sponsorship from Aetna Insurance, so who's making a lot of that possible. The couple other programming notes that I'll mention. The drag queen story time hours are going well. Those are the last Sunday of the month through October. So we have 2 more, the last Sunday in September and the last Sunday in October. And those are at 11 o'clock in Unity Park. So this is a partnership with DC Public Libraries, who also bring the bicycle bookmobile, and kids can check out books and read other books. So it's a really fun event. And it goes for about a half an hour, from about 11 to 11:30 on the last Sunday of the month in Unity Park. And then many of you came out to our Admiral Vibe summer concert series that was on Wednesday nights in August in Calorama Park. We really had an overwhelming response. So we didn't really know what to expect. This was the first time we had done a summer concert series in Calorama Park. And we really, it was tremendous. So I think we had 300 or 400 people at least each Wednesday night. So in fact, many people didn't want us to end those, although we had to because we have a lot of other programming this fall. So, we will hope to bring those back next summer. But we were really pleased. So thank you all for coming out to those concerts. And then also Porch Fest, Adams Morgan Porch Fest, which many of you are familiar with. That will be Saturday, October 1st from 2 to 6 p.m. We had a planning meeting today, and we have 17 porches, I think, and over 48 bands, I think. So looking forward to another great event on Saturday, October 1st. And you'll start to see some more information about that coming out really soon. And then the Apple Festival that we do in partnership with the Farmers Market, that is going to be Saturday, October 29th, the last Saturday in October. And that will be in the morning. And we will also partner with the hotel and do the judging on their front steps. Also they were really generous with the use of their kitchen for preparing the apple pies for sale. So in the charity this year that we've chosen to get the pie sales is going to be Miriam's Kitchen. Miriam's has been doing a lot of work in Adams Morgan with our vulnerable and homeless population. And we have a monthly call with them, kind of check in on the status of a number of people. And they have really been a great partner. So we want to support them with the Apple Festival contributions. So, and just back to the pedestrian zone for a moment, we are hoping to add a November date if the mayor's office will let us. It'd be early November, either the first or second weekend in November, because after that, then we get into Thanksgiving. So we're, fingers crossed that we'll be able to do one more in November, and then hopefully come back in the spring, in April, May, and start back up. So, again, it all kind of depends on the mayor and the Office of Planning and the funding. So, because all of this is rather expensive, but we also are working in parallel with the permanent infrastructure. And we're evaluating a cable system that has a lot less impact and should be easy to install, easy to deploy, and then ultimately easy to remove. So we're proceeding now with the approvals for that. So again, it's going slower than we would like, but we're hopeful that will happen in the next probably 4 to 6 months. So. And then looking a little bit further out to the holidays, we're going to be bringing back the holiday decorations and the gift boxes for the plaza. So you'll can look forward to all of that again starting in November. So there's a lot going on this fall, and thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you all at these upcoming events.
Thanks, Kristen. Always good to hear from the bid, all your activities. Thank you so much. Is there any other community members who have announcements or updates? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Please say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. The consent agenda passes 6-0. Moving on to the regular agenda. Consideration for settlement agreement for pitchers. Commissioner Bollicky, would you like to introduce this settlement agreement?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair Clem. In a nutshell, what we're doing here is updating the settlement agreement for pitchers and a league of their own. They are currently using a settlement agreement that was drafted in 2004 and amended in 2008 that was written for the old Adams Morgan Spaghetti Garden, which some of you may remember. I used to eat there when I was a starving law student, and obviously services and times have changed at that address. So they wanted to do an amended and restated settlement agreement. It's really updated to reflect what's actually going on at the business, but we kept all of the basic operational requirements the same. There is really the only noteworthy thing in here is we added language where we agree to revisit the occupancy question, the total occupancy load, if they go forward and get an updated certificate of occupancy from the city, based on the idea that when they changed from the Spaghetti Garden to the successor to now to Pitchers, various changes were made in the physical layout of the building and the business itself, so that they can now come forward and do different things with that space and potentially increase the occupancy load. But we decided to sort of put that off and come back and deal with that at another time when they decide they want to. So let me just close by thanking the participants, Dennis James with the Kalorama Citizens Association and Matt Menora, who was the attorney for Pitchers. Appreciated both of them negotiating in good faith and paying attention to the deadlines of the ANC. I'm also happy that we've followed the procedures that present full transparency to everybody. We got this on the agenda 10 days in advance, and folks have had a chance to look at it if they're so inclined. And so with that, I'm happy that we're able to do the people's business in a timely and thorough manner, and thank everyone for their participation, and yield back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Balaki. Commissioner Wood?
I just really want to quickly thank Commissioner Balaki. You were great. I know this is a long process. Great work. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Wood? Any comments or questions from the community?
We got
Commissioner
Commissioner
Falaskini.
Sorry, I didn't use the button. I was scrolling on a different screen.
Okay.
Just also wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Balaki for negotiating that. I also really appreciate the trash mitigation policy that's in there. I think that's going to be really good for the block and for the neighborhood. Getting trash pickup 5 days a week, because we know how bad the rats can be in that alley. And the more trash pickup that we have in that alley, the better. So thank you so much for negotiating that.
And are there any questions or discussion from the community? With that, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the settlement agreement for pitchers, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion passes 6-0. Moving on to planning and zoning, consideration of a resolution in favor of protected barriers over Taft Bridge. Commissioner Faulkner, do you want to review this for the community?
Yeah. So thanks, Commissioner Clem. So this is a resolution that was suggested to us by ANC 3C as they passed a very similar one that is in support of protective barriers on the Taft Bridge to prevent people from committing suicide at the bridge. We passed it unanimously out of committee. I think Chelsea is sharing some links in the chat, including she has been doing a lot of work pushing for this. I think the resolution, has some important stats about how barrier installation has worked in other places in deterring suicide and helping save lives. We also included a note about installing some signs with mental health crisis lines at the bridges because I think now I can't remember who it was. It may have been Commissioner Balaki or Commissioner Falaskini pointed out that there used to be some signs at the entrance to the bridge, but those seem to not be there anymore. So we'd encourage the district government to consider adding those again. And I think that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. Are there any questions from fellow commissioners? Commissioner Wood?
There's not really a question. I just want to thank, of course, Commissioner Faulkner for leading this, also the commissioners from DC, and also for Chelsea Van Thoff to be here. Like a lot of people, I've had all kinds of experience with suicide and self-harm and all these things, and it's never easy. It's frankly pretty inspiring to see these people take it from a position of grief and turn it into something that is proactive and in a good way. I really want to thank all the people who have been part of those efforts. Looking forward to continuing those efforts because it doesn't stop with the bridge. It starts with the bridge. We have infrastructure issues, we have healthcare issues, with a lot of other issues that this kind of is the tip of the iceberg for. So really, I'm glad to see this on our table and looking forward to voting for it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the community? You can raise your hand. Chelsea Van Thoff. Gordon?
Go ahead, Chelsea.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you guys for bringing this resolution to the table. As you all know, I lost my partner, Peter, April 13th to this bridge. You can look at the links that I shared in the chat with all the things I could say on this, but I do want to get the point across that the barriers do save lives. They cut through the impulse, and you know, if the Taft had one, I think Peter would still be here. So thanks to all of my community members who are here right now listening. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you, commissioners, for bringing up this very, very important topic.
Thank you, Chelsea, for being here. I'm sorry for your loss. And yeah, so this resolution is needed. Are there any other comments or questions from the community or commissioners? Commissioner Faulkner?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Chelsea for all her work on this and for being so open and sharing her story. It's really powerful and meaningful, I know, for a lot of people.
Thank you. Thanks for all the information in the chat. With that, we will bring this to a vote. All those in favor of supporting the resolution in favor of protective barriers on the Taft Bridge, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. With that, the resolution passes 6-0. Thanks for the commissioner's time, and thanks for the community's time. With that, the meeting is over, and